Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. This time we have a deck profile for Vegeks. Yes, over the weekend, or I guess on Friday, we did just get the ban announcement that Universe 3s are going to be banned once Set 10 comes out. I know a ton of locals and even some of the online tournaments are already abiding by these ban changes, and I think it's definitely for the best of the game. But one thing I see too often is that people are saying that Vegeks is like unplayable. I know a lot of people realize it is still very playable. I think it's actually still very, very good. So I wanted to bring you guys my deck profile today for Vegeks, show you guys what I'm working with. Of course, this is not the perfect solid form of Vegeks, but I think it is a very, very good starting point for people to take and kind of mold it, do with it what they will, and make it better. I think it's a very good starting point. So that being said, guys, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss a video. If you want to watch the channel, there are many ways to do that down in the description. I'll also drop an info card in the top right corner. We got the Patreon, the Gemmy app, and the merch store, where you can get caught up on your Dragon Ball Super knowledge and Crossfire TCG merch. Guys, that being said, let's get started with the video. So obviously, we're starting Dex Leader. One of the things I think people will take with this leader more so than they did with the aggro version is the actual sparking 20 cards in your drop area. If you lose the game by running out of cards in your deck, shuffle your drop area into your deck instead. This is one of the things about the leader that made it really seem like a mid-range deck. It didn't really seem like it's supposed to be super hyper aggressive, at least from the way that Bandai may have designed it at conception. The sparking 20 effect pretty much tells you it's meant to go a super long game. You're meant to go through your deck multiple times, not deck out, and still be able to play. So I think that ability is going to see a lot more play in Vegeks as a whole, because we are transitioning to mid-range, and you guys know me, I love mid-range more than life itself. So that being said, I am super excited to play Vegeks now that it's kind of in this state. Mid-range Vegeks for the win. Of course, we're abusing SS Gotenks Fusion of Friendship. I mean, it's one of the best cards in the deck. You play it for free when you mill it off of your leader. It comes in with a marker. The discard effect on it, not as great as it was. We still do play a lot of drop area synergies, so it's definitely going to be a good effect. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely still going to be quite good. But the fact that you're not discarding U3s for those combos of swapping them in and out, that is a little bit unfortunate. But besides that, we play a ton of graveyard synergy in the deck, so we'll explain that as we go through it. The -4, still one of your main win conditions. You're going to give it this thing dual attack, then give him double strike with the leader, go in twice with 25k dual attack double strike. That's going to be how you're going to go for most games. Again, your opponent can't really counterplay this. They can't really arrival it. They have to have multiple negates or something along the lines of negating its skills, which really doesn't exist too much in the way of unison. So with that being said, this is going to be one of our main win conditions in the deck. Everything else kind of supporting it. Of course, we have the Time Agents and the Supreme Kai Time Guardian of Space-Time. Now, I will tell you guys here that this is a 60 card build. I do think there are pros and cons for both the 50 card build of Vegeks and the 60 card build of Vegeks. Again, like I mentioned before, you want to have that sparking 20. You want to be able to play a very elongated game. And there are multiple pros and cons to keeping your deck larger, but there are also pros and cons to keeping your deck smaller on the 50 side. You know, argument for 50, more consistency, better mills, more cards you want to see early, you'll see them early. But one of the pros to keeping a bigger deck size is you'll have a higher combo power ability for a lot longer in the game, which actually does mean a lot. You know, that 30k ability versus that 20k ability, it honestly can make or break games. So for right now, I am going with the 60 card build, and you'll see obviously the rest of the deck list as we go through. But these cards, you do want to mill them all the time. Of course, you want to get them into play, and we are actually playing Fusion in this deck, so getting them out and about is pretty important. I will mention with Trunks, now that, you know, Nagrishi is obviously going to be banned, this card is going to see obviously way more play as a blocker. You know, as obvious as that may sound, you're going to want to use this thing for key blocks. Make sure you block those double strikes, make sure you block those triple strikes, those crits. It is really important, because now that we're playing an elongated game and we can pretty much awaken whenever we have 20 cards in our drop area thanks to our leader effect, you're going to want to preserve your life total when it's most beneficial to do so with a card like Trunks. Now, the other thing with Supreme Kai of Time is I don't foresee this build being a super low hand size build. Like I mentioned before, you constantly wanted to discard Nagrishis, VRs, all your U3s, and there are still cards in this deck that we do want to discard, but I don't think that you're going to always have a super low hand size in the deck. I actually think you're going to have a pretty decent to moderate hand size in this deck, so make sure you combo your Supreme Kais accordingly. Of course, there will be grind games. Of course, there will be games down to the wire where you need to get that extra 10k combo power, so make sure you're saving those for when that time comes, because I don't think it'll be early game in most scenarios, except of course probably against hand control, but you know, that's hand control, so different story there. And Vegeta, his removal effect, probably going to be a lot more relevant than it has been in the past, because normally he was just like a 19k vanilla you play for free. That was pretty much all people looked at him as. But now that we are playing a mid-range game, you do want to deal with your opponent's resources as effectively as possible. And an activate battle, pay 2, warp at 3 or less, that's definitely pretty solid. So just wanted to mention that for you guys. Now here we go, we're actually playing Vegeks cards. Now I'm on record saying that these Vegeks cards are actually very, very powerful. Of course, they were outclassed by the ultra hyper aggressive version of Vegeks, but now that you can play these things, they're really, really strong. So I'm going to start with Vegeks Space-Time Synthesis, because it's probably the most easily accessible card in this whole lineup here. So let's give it a quick read. So we have a 6-drop, Double Strike, Union Patora for 3 energy with a Trunks Xeno and a Vegeta Xeno. Permanent, you can choose battle cards in your warp when choosing cards to use for this card's Union skill from your hand. So basically what that means is when you're fusing into it, you can use Trunks and Vegetas that are on your board. You can also use Trunks and Vegetas that are in your warp to fuse. That helps you in terms of, you know, maybe you don't have the perfect setup, you're able to fuse from your warp. That is very, very helpful. Auto, when this card's played, add up to 1 battle card with energy cost of 4 or less from your warp to your hand. This is very, very good because it helps you recycle anything milled early that you didn't really want to be milled, as in Bibbidi Super Combo. That's really one of the main ones there, but of course there are other applications depending on the situation, what cards you may need. Now we have another 6-drop Vegeks. This is a championship pack promo, so I know guys, this could definitely be a pricier card, but I do think it is actually very, very good. So we have a 6-drop 20k Vegeks, Union Patora for 2, so keep in mind that Space-Time Synthesis is a turn 3 play, and then Father-Son Bonds is a turn 2 play. Trunks Xeno and Vegeta Xeno. Now this guy does not have the option of fusing from the warp, so you do want to see the pretty good setup early on, but we have ways to do that, which I will explain. Auto, if your other card's a black sand card and your opponent has 3 or more energy and you have no battle cards in play, when this card is placed in your drop area from your deck by a skill, you may play this card from your drop area. So pretty much the same thing as the cards we saw a second ago, the Supreme Kai Tai and the Trunks and the Vegeta. He is able to be free played when he's milled, but you have to have no battle cards in play for that to happen. Your opponent also has to have 3 or more energy, so that won't always come up a lot, but it is a free play 6-drop Vegeks, which is very important for Vegeks Burning Impact Unleash. We have 7-drop 30k Double Strike Xeno Evolve. Now a lot of you guys don't remember what Xeno Evolve does. That's okay, because this keyword has pretty much almost never been relevant. So Xeno Evolve says, when you evolve on top of the correct target, for example, a 6-drop Vegeks like we see on the left here, when you evolve over them, you send the evolve, the one underneath to the warp, and then you play the new card in active mode. So you get some pretty high octane aggression there. You know, in the case of Space-Time Synthesis, play it for 3, swing Double Strike, get your card back with his auto, then swap him out for an active mode 30k Double Striker, and then when you play him, you choose one of your opponent's battle cards and send it to the warp. Now what's really cool about the Champ Pack promo, in my opinion, is that the fact you can play it for free and then evolve into the 7-drop Vegeks, well, that means you've just done all that for 0 energy. Like, sure, the Champ Pack doesn't have Double Strike, it's 20k as opposed to 25, but the fact that it costs you 3 less energy, the fact that it costs you 0 energy, I think is actually quite good. So that's why I like the 4 of Champ Pack promo, but obviously you got to play 4 of all your Vegeks in order just to make that happen as many times as you possibly can. So that being said, we're moving on. We do play 1 overall in the deck, Trunks Elite Descendant and Vegeta Demonstration of Might. So here's the thing, back before when the Ultra Aggro version was a thing, you would want to play this Trunks, but you'd want to bring out the Reluctant Reinforcements Vegeta. In this deck, we don't need to mill as often. We just want to make our mills count. So with that being said, we do want to see this Trunks as early as turn 1, turn 2 to get this Vegeta out. And what that does is it gives you your Trunks and your Vegeta in the warp, as well as certain other cards in your drop area. So let's say you mill more Trunkses and Vegetas. I mean, most likely they'd be played, but if you milled more copies of these cards, the more you put in your warp by overwhelming out Elite Descendant, the more times you can use fusion from the warp and not have to use your resources on the board. So that makes a pretty big difference. Now, what I mentioned before was the 50 card builds will obviously see this combo more often turn 1 than the 60 card builds. That's just how consistency works, right? But the nice thing is you don't actually mind hard drawing Vegeta Demonstration of Might as long as your drop area is set up accordingly, like I mentioned before. You know, let's say you mill this Trunks Elite Descendant, but you draw into Vegeta Demonstration of Might. That's okay. You can overwhelm Demonstration of Might, and then you still have your Trunks in the warp, and then at the end of the turn, or if you use your activate main, your Vegeta will go to the warp, so you'll have your Trunks and your Vegeta in the warp for that to happen. So you really don't mind seeing either of these cards on turn 1 or 2. Ideally, it would be the Trunks, but it can be the Vegeta. That works out pretty well, as a matter of fact. Next up, here is our Graveyard Gravy. This is the stuff that we want in our drop area all the time. Obviously, we're playing a mill deck, so that's going to happen more often than not. But like I mentioned before, these are also good cards to discard with your Gotenks Unison. So 4 Majin Buu, Wickedness Incarnate, activate main, pay 1. If your leader's black, if all your energy is black, you can't activate main on this card for the rest of the turn. Choose a black card in your hand, discard it. If you do, draw 2 cards. So he is like our 1 energy Sand Instincts for mono black specifically. And spoiler alert, we're not playing Sand Instincts in this deck. I was playing it as a 4, but I think it is very, very good in Vegeks. Don't get me wrong. But I showed this deck to my teammates, wanted some feedback. Russell Stelzer, who has been playing mid-range Vegeks since even before U3 was hit, he recommended take out Sand Instincts and try a few different cards that I will get to in a moment. So I want to shout him out for that. But this is our next best thing. Our 1 energy Sand Instincts, discard a card, draw 2. It's so, so good. Fu mission accomplished. Pay 3 of. Pay 2, warp him, get a black battle card, 7 or less from your drop area or warp back to your hand, and that is almost always going to be Bibbidi. Just buying back Bibbidi, honestly, is a lot of times way better than getting 2 random cards off of your Sand Instincts. Koitsuki Mechanical Courage. We are in mono black. We don't have access to the best counterplays, but that's okay, because with a card like Koitsuki, we can punish our opponent's counterplays. Use this guy, your opponent gets punished for Topo, Vegeta the Cruel, Chomp the Trickster, all that kind of stuff. Very, very solid in my opinion in that regard. Next up, this is one of the main engines I fit in since I cut the Sand Instincts, and that is 3 Son Goku making an entrance and 3 Son Goku Sand Transcendence. Russell did recommend this to me. I wasn't super sold on it at first, but after playing around with it, I really, really like it. You know, there are a lot of, Vegeks plays in the deck. There are a lot of graveyard synergies in the deck, but this adds a little bit more proactivity, which I really, really like. You get the 1 energy, 25k double striker, and you can send things back to your drop area from your warp when you need to, like that Buu, Wickedness Incarnate, and whatnot. So that works out really, really well in my opinion. I do like this change a lot. And no Sand Instincts means for a much, much cheaper deck, so keep that in mind. For Bibbidi, it's the best card in the deck, pretty much. 4 Power Bursts. This deck does play negates now that it is more mid-range. You kind of need to play them. And then the 1 SS4 SCR, I'm not super in love with it. I mean, the fact that this card does lock you out of playing other battle cards, that is a pretty big downside, believe it or not. The 5 energy effect though, draw 2, rip 2, untap 2, that is all very good. I do like this card though in a deck like Vegito and in a deck like Vegeks, where your main win con is your Unison, because he does not stop you from playing more Unisons, so that works out really well. That was a 60 card deck. A couple things I want to talk about here. Crisis Crusher, not super essential in the main deck anymore. I think less people will play Vegeks now, so BMS should be a card you run into way less, but it also doesn't really hurt you that much. It only really stops you from playing your Trunks Time Agent. So, I mean, is this card worth main decking just for that? Not really. You could definitely play a Son Goku Adventure Begins engine, play this, play some 4-star balls, maybe play some vanillas if you wanted to. I think that's a super viable engine, but I don't want to go with it personally in this build, because I think the other cards we're going with are very, very good as well. And then SS Vegeks Mastery Merge. This is definitely a sideboard consideration you want to have. Now that we are a mid-range deck, you want to have that anti-aggro card. He can fuse from the warp, which is very nice, and he redirects all 15k or higher attacks at him, and he's 24k barrier, so that is relatively difficult for your opponent to deal with. 110% put this in the sideboard. I was going to put it in the main, but honestly, I didn't think aggro was prevalent enough to warrant that, but 100% in the side deck. Guys, that's the deck profile with some recommendations. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time.